Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends of Faces of Armenia, we warmly welcome you to another special series on Artsakh. Our distinguished guest today is, in fact, a repeat guest, Hratchya Arzumanian. He is located right now in Artsakh, in the war zone. And in the first interview, we already discussed the geopolitical context of the conflict, as well as the security system of the Caucasus and its broader global implications. But before we start today's discussion, a quick note on the format. The special series on Artsakh offers experts from a broad spectrum of disciplines a platform to share their perspectives and reflect upon Nagorno-Karabakh. By elevating their perspectives, we hope to add to the substance of ongoing discussions, strengthening mediating forces, both of which advance an unmistakable impetus to find and define an agreeable, timely, and hopefully lasting end to the war. We, Faces of Armenia, see ourselves as a bridge between Armenia and the international community, calling and enabling productive relationships and positive engagement. And yes, if you could simply walk us through the timeline of Artsakh and the creation of the parliament, the creation of civil and political institutions, all the things that make a case for it to be a de facto state.
Yes, so I can say that it isn't our reality. The Artsakh is de facto state now. We can do it and building state in the very hard situation and context of South Caucasus. And now we defend our states, we defend our futures, we defend our children's, our families. And I think that it is a normal attitude for all people and for all nations on the world to protect, to defend for your home, your future, your reality. And I think we haven't any chance and every possibility to overcome or avoid this situation, this reality.
But can you help us understand Artsakh itself, its institutions, its successes?
I don't, it is difficult to in 2 words depict the Artsakh and our reality. I can say that Artsakh is small but usual country with European cultures, with European communities and attitudes between each persons, etc., etc. Artsakh and Armenia is European countries, European cultures, and therefore I think for European states and nations it isn't difficult to understand and imagine what is the Artsakh. It is Christian nations with roots, millennial roots, and the same attitude to the nations, to his family, to the futures. And therefore I don't think that we have serious problem to understanding what is Artsakh. It isn't reality of Far East or Africa, etc., etc. It is European countries.
Okay, but I would really like to spend 1 or 2 more minutes on that, because a number of people may not have heard the name Artsakh. So can you make the case that it is similar to, say, Nice or Bern, like some European cities? Walk us through what kind of institutions do you have there? Tell us about the Artsakh Parliament. Tell us about like the experience of Artsakh. What makes it European? What makes it a Christian country?
It is the usual situation and standard situation for European countries. We have parliaments, we have presidential rules of our orders, we have judge, etc., etc. You have all necessary branch of powers, and they were organized by constitutions, by laws, etc., etc. It is usual situation, not anything more and nothing few. And I can say that in Artsakh we have change the presidentials. We have already fourth president of Artsakh now, which we go through elections, etc., etc. It isn't so problems. How to depict our countries, it isn't problem, I think. It is a normal European country, not dictatorship, not authoritarian countries, and therefore it isn't a problem, I think. The Christian cultures, I can say that in Artsakh you can find hundreds of monasteries, churches, etc., etc., starting from third and fourth centuries. We have very famous monastery complex in Artsakh with very famous histories. Therefore, it isn't a problem. European peoples, European persons sense it's very comfortable in Artsakh, I think, and you can try to find the Europeans who was in Artsakh and speak with them about their imagination of and their sensing of Artsakh. Therefore, you can see maybe Ireland, maybe Scotland, maybe Austria and mountainous part of Germany. We have the same landscape and maybe the same attitude to the history, to the community. Armenians of Artsakh is a landscape peoples and landscape attitude for his culture and history and future. Munich may be in Germany, therefore the same attitude, the same sensing of countries, communities. Therefore, but not beers, of course, but wine. Artsakh is very famous with wine and uh, hard drink as whiskeys, but more hard, nearly 55, 70 bottles of whiskeys. Therefore, everything is okay. Everything is good for living and for building your country. Maybe we can do it in the future when we can finish our wars and defend our rights to build our countries and life as we wanted to live without any constraints and any aggressive attitudes from our neighbors.
Thank you very much for this very warm and picturesque description of Artsakh. I think that greatly helped our audience. And now one important fact, I think in 2015-16, I'm sorry if I'm mistaken with the dates, you even had international election monitoring officials come to Artsakh and confirm that the election was all good, all perfect. Can you maybe drop a word or two on that?
Yes, we have such commissions, but we have problem with this commission's attitude for because European Union and other centers of power do not recognize our right to have elections. But the procedures of elections, the procedures of election of de facto authority of Artsakh was incredible in world. Everything agree that our election procedures, our rules are working. Therefore, it isn't a problem. We haven't any problem of failed state or weak state. No, Artsakh is maturing states if you consider the authorities' rules of law, etc., etc. I can say again, it is very rare for the post-Soviet reality, but Artsakh is a sustainable state with already established democratic values and traditions. And maybe I can say that these traditions have deep root in the history because Armenians of Artsakh in all his history was in war, I can say. And therefore, if you is in war, you must construct the sustainable community. In sustainable community, you have all two options. You maybe construct very hard authoritarian regimes, or maybe you must construct a community which is good contact with authorities. And authority can be can based on the community for defense countries. And in this part, I can say that Artsakh during centuries can construct the military democracy. When the military problems, the military wars, etc., force us to construct democracy, military democracy and citizens society, because without such support, without the democracy and whole support of authority, you cannot wage in the wars which go dozens of years. Therefore, Artsakh, yes, is democracy, and I can again say again, maybe I can say the military democracy. In the military context, military task and existential war force you to construct democracy because any other systems cannot survive during long time, in dozens of years and centuries. Therefore, in the Middle Age and the era, the society chose the lords of Artsakh before. They became what? The lords of herzogs of Artsakh if they have support of society. It is our traditions. You can to be the suzerains of Artsakh if society chooses you, and then you take the whole power, of course, but you need in society for taking authority. It was before democracy, before the nation states, etc., etc. But we find these models, these modes of organizing our lives. Maybe something is no, I can't say. I finished here. Maybe I think that we can speak about Switzerland as the models where was the military men who construct the democracy. And in Artsakh, it is the mainly military men who construct society, democracy, and state. Therefore, if you have such situation, you must be very high level of liberty, and you have a higher level of authority. You must agree with working with your authority for constructing states. Therefore, in this space, we can see that in this war that the same mechanism, the same base and culture help us to survive in this very asymmetric war now. In other situation, in all other attitude, if you don't have democracy, if you don't working with your authority, you cannot survive in this war. Therefore, it is very usual for us. We're ready for democracy. We're ready for working and for living in normal situation without war. It isn't a problem for us.
So thank you very much. I think you brought the core argument for Armenia being, for Artsakh being European, for Artsakh being democratic, because there were only two options. Because the security situation is critical, the military could resurrect either an authoritarian system or a democratic system, and they chose the democratic option. And
yes, yes, of course, and it is the tradition which was based and survived during centuries. It isn't the result of 20th century or 19th century. Artsakh living in the within of empires, Persian empires, Russian empires, but we every time survive and preserve our relics of our authorities, and empires understand that you can control this mountain region only through authoritarians who work authority who working in this landscape. In this landscape, working with democratic election authority, which then we choose our lords, and the next type, these lords have the credibility of empires for working or ruling of Artsakh. It was the systems which was have tradition during centuries, I think you can say. It start to establish in the, probably I can say in the 13th centuries. Starting to construct this system of 30th centuries when the lords of Artsakh, 5 lords of Artsakh, construct the situation.
This is one of the most valuable points, I think, because in order to be democratic, you have to have democratic heritage.
Yes.
And like if you look at in the post-Soviet neighborhood, a lot of countries didn't really have an awareness for democracy, which is why so many countries, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, fell into a more authoritarian state after independence. But this just exemplifies how important history is, and history makes a case that Armenia and Artsakh are European.
Yes, it is
They-
the problem of tradition and cultures. Therefore, we very easy and to very brief construct the hard powers. But this hard power is constructed and organized on the democratic values and principles. I can say again, if you're working, if you're living in such hard context environment, when you will be in the war during dozens years and centuries, any other attitude for constructing states and society cannot survive in this situation. We haven't any possibility to have the sustainable Artsakh society, only through democracy. Therefore, I say in the third time, I say about this situation as a military democracy. When the military context, military task forms the society on the base of democracy. Any other solution is not working during long time.
I think with these words, we can transition to shining light on the war. And I would like to take it the following. Can you firstly offer a really subjective and personal experience? What happened when you woke up on the 27th of September? How did you experience the aggressions? What went through your head? What went through your mind? And yeah, so we start with the personal and then move to the analytical lens.
It may be difficult to speak about these themes because our psychology, our mentality, probably I risk to say that the Armenian of Artsakh can working and living in the situation of war. It is very difficult. It is a very dangerous situation, but maybe something in our history, in our traditions, in our cultures help us very brief in the very short time to adapt to the conditions of war. We haven't possibility to be in panics. We haven't such possibility and chance, uh, such a possibility to be in the panic because war is very dangerous war. Therefore, we very quickly, very brief, transform and triggers in the situation of war. It is the cultures probably, I can say it is the one of the elements of our culture. Very rapid to switch in the military mode. Therefore, we can live and survive and fight in the military mode, but we understand that it is very dangerous. We understand that society which very long time live in the military mode, changing, and we of course will be have very serious problem in the future if you long time working and living in the world. Therefore, I hope that we can, with common efforts, finishing the hard war phase of our conflict. We can live in this situation during months and years, but I don't think that it is good solution. We see the situation in Afghanistan, in Syria, in Libya, not where the war during dozens years. We see the new generation which and live born in the situation of war and do not see, do not know anything, only war. It isn't good solution. It isn't appropriate solution for us. Therefore, yes, of course, my generation, my people is ready for war. But as every person which know what is the war, they try to avoid war. If you know the dangers of war, as in your personal experience, you start trying to do everything that to avoid the war, that your children, your new generation do not see the another phase of a war. Therefore, Armenians of Artsakh understanding war. Armenian of Artsakh and his culture, our culture, prepare us for war. We can war, we are warriors. I can say that the Artsakh Armenians is the various part of Armenian nation. It is our usual and part of our cultures, but as a various, we understanding the dangers of war. We know how dangerous is war, and we trying to have peace. Therefore, the warriors of Artsakh, Armenians of Artsakh, is the most peacekeepers in our regions. Because we know what is the war, and therefore we're trying and forced to have peace in the region and trying to do everything to be the peacekeepers in our regions. The one of the rarest peacekeepers in our regions is Artsakh Armenians, I can say, our warriors.
So the Artsakh Defense Army, by definition, took a defensive approach.
Yes, of course. Yes.
Always.
It is a part of our mentality. Artsakh, we are defend. We are warriors which defend our land. We're not offensive in our nature. We don't want to conquer, to war, conquer, etc., etc. It isn't ours. We try to live in our lands, which taken from our ancestors during millions of years, and haven't any. It isn't in our culture to go offensive and taking in other people's lands, towns, etc., etc. If you do it, it is only in the part of self-defense, not anymore. We will be glad if we can live with our neighbors in peace. We need it in war for be prosperous and will be the good states, etc., etc. We need in peace. As a warriors, we're ready for war, but we need and we want peace. It isn't the peace of ill or weak persons. No, it is the willing of peace of strong persons, strong warriors. It is another mode, but it is a part of our cultures. The cultures of Artsakh Armenians as a part of Armenian cultures as white Armenian cultures.
So then maybe we can now understand. So we understood the attitude of Artsakh Armenians, of the Artsakh warriors. But let us understand what has been happening during this war. Again, it has been waging on since more than a month now. And what can you describe a few key events that escalated the war? What is happening? Where did Azerbaijan initially attack? What are like only new levels of escalation over this past months until today? And maybe you can also briefly reflect then on the 3 failed ceasefire agreements.
We speak about this in the first conversation. The most shock for us was the militaries of Turkey and jihadists from around the world, which we don't ready to see them in our regions. Of course, we see the mujahids in the first Artsakh war. In first Artsakh war, we see mujahids from Afghanistan, we see mujahids from Caucasus, from Middle East. It isn't new for us, but we wait that Russians and another center of power do not prevent for appearance of mujahids and jihadis and terrorists in our regions. Probably I must say about this. We was ready for Azerbaijan hard attitude to war, but we don't ready that Azerbaijan again go on the way for beheading our warriors, for working against not militaries. We don't ready that Azerbaijan shelling our towns. It was it was not good, I think. You know the mass facts who show about what took place in Stepanakert more yesterday, and how we can prevent Azerbaijan and Turkey from military crimes events and military crimes actions. Maybe, maybe, maybe they must be the one of the critical point for international community and European communities. Now we have the facts of military crimes of Turkish and Azerbaijan against Armenians of Artsakh, against Artsakh. And therefore, I think we must speak about this and trying to have the solution of these problems. And European cultures, European unions, international community have the tools for working with these crimes. Therefore, I think it is time to initiate the procedures for these war crimes. It is difficult for me, sorry, and I want to finish these themes. I understand, I am sure that our listenings understand about which we take when speaking now. And I can take parallels with the war crime in Artsakh and maybe the crimes in East now during the church, where jihadists beheading the women. Therefore, it is the same nature of violence, military violence, which cannot agree, we cannot agree with this situation, with this attitude to war. We can understand and take in account here various working in the military fields. But when we speak, we see the terrorist attacks on the citizens. When we see the military crimes, we must say stop. It is another stop. It is another attitude to war. If you want to preserve us as a civilized nations, civilized cultures, humanities, we must stop it. But Artsakh cannot do it alone. We need to support our.
It is a global war. In a global war,
world.
can we only solve with global stakeholders?
Yes, it is. This is a global problem. In Artsakh, we see one of the part and one of the projection of these problems. Artsakh, in this sense, is a part of global problem.
Can you help us understand right now, today, what is the situation?
Situation is very hard because we have the ceasefires, but Azerbaijani part do not violate this ceasefire. 30th violate Putin's attempts, Macron's attempts, and now the Trump's attempts to have ceasefires do not working because Erdogan and Aliyev have another mode, another choice for our problem. And I think one of the first problem is how we understand how we can stop them. And I think the civil army or European community and the world haven't tools for working with Turkey and Azerbaijan for stopping this war. Not military, hard power, but we have the financial tools, we have economic tools, we have other tools for pushing Turkey and Azerbaijan and forcing them to stop war.
I can only agree, and I think it's also on part of the civic society, of the civic community to push
yes, of course.
To boycott products, etc. As we are already advancing, like we have about 10 minutes in our conversation, and I would really like to take this last part of the conversation on a really important topic. How real do you think right now is the threat of genocide? How real is the threat of a third world war?
We must understand that Erdogan and Aliyev and Erdogan said directly that the process is the war, the current war is the continuation of the processes would take place in the beginning of 20th centuries. Therefore, we can say that it is the attempt for genocide. It is genocidal attitude and attempts to annihilate and Armenians of Artsakh. Therefore, I don't see hard problem to understand this reality. How we can stop it? It is very difficult because we know that during the last years, the international community cannot stop the genocidal attitude and genocidal acts in Yugoslavia, in Africa, etc., in other regions of the world. Therefore, we must work in for stopping these processes. And it is very, very important, I think, because if you cannot, if you already in the 21st century starting with Armenian genocides, it means that world going on the very hard options, because after Armenian genocide, we have Armenian genocide during First World War. And maybe we can speak about indicators and that probably the world going on another big war. And it isn't good for our children, for our futures. I hope that we can preserve our futures, the future of European internationals. We can preserve our possibility to construct new international order, not through war, but through transformations. Till now, the all international order transformation take place during the White World War. Maybe we can do the same work and to choose another path, and we can construct new world without World War. In that path, the Artsakh War, maybe the regional war, World War, but maybe we can stop all this process and choose another system trajectory for Artsakh, for Caucasus, for European, and for world.
I mean, this is a very strong call for everybody to wake up, because the situation is not local. The situation is no game. We are at risk of repeating the horrific events of the
Yes, repeating and continuing and finishing the Armenian genocide in the 21st century. Well, of course, we fight. We do not. I'm sure that we prevent these processes. We will not have new genocide, but the attempt of genocide must be qualified by international community. The international community must protocol that Turkey and Azerbaijan try to go on the genocide solution.
Do you need a unified international community, or is it a good
Yes,
time?
of course.
The first few countries recognize this attempt.
Yes, of course. I recognize this attempt, and as understand recognizing this attempt, take us right to live in our country, in our community, in our states. Do not destroy Artsakh as a state for territorial integrity of Republic of Azerbaijan, which demonstrated genocide, trying to genocide solution for our people. I think it isn't good for community, for international community going on this part. Azerbaijan lost his rights on Artsakh during the United States, during Soviet Union collapse. And therefore, I think it is time to recognize the reality and maybe going on another option, try to find another options.
Then how can recognition of Artsakh help? How can recognition of Artsakh prevent a continuation of the war, prevent a genocide?
I think the recognition of Artsakh can be the first part, the first step on this way, as the country, in the solution on the political diplomatic arenas, which can prevent the going situation on more worse modes.
With these words, I think it's an unmistakable wake-up call to everyone to advance, to start this multi-phase process of which the first step will have to be recognition of Artsakh.
Yes,
And
of course. Yes.
provides a framework.
Yes.
With one can work, with one can establish its rights, their rights.
Yes.
Your words were really insightful, meaningful, and I think, I hope that a lot of international people will see our conversation and think about it. It's about your human duty, your duty you owe to humanity. We all live because we are social creatures, and so we cannot extinct others of us just because of indifference.
Yes, of course. We have a right to live in this place, in our homes, and defend our homes and construct our homes. It is the usual and basic rights of persons.